Welcome to Connecting Africa, the show that highlights the leaders and trailblazers connecting the continent through business. I'm Eleni Jakas, and this month we come to you from the city of Cape Town for Africa Energy Week, where leaders have gathered to discuss one thing: how to make energy poverty history. It's a big and busy week in Cape Town. There's a lot to discuss, with many still living without access to electricity. There's already increasing energy demand due to a growing population. And on a continent with an overwhelming reliance on coal, an energy transition and climate change are very much on the minds of those gathered here.
Werner, great to see you. Great to be at Energy Week. Describe Africa's energy portfolio, energy situation. How would you explain it?
Africa's energy situation is a mixed statement, with 600 million people without any kind of access to energy and 900 million people, mostly women and children, without any kind of access to clean cooking fuels. So from that perspective, Africa's energy situation at the moment is one where we need to focus on investing significantly into generating power for all of these people. And that is why we have decided to champion making energy poverty history by 2030. We need to throw everything at it, because at the core of development is reliable and affordable energy. If you don't have reliable and affordable energy, there's no point talking about access to education. There's no point talking about access to healthcare. For all of these things, all the problems that we have with respect to our lack of jobs, you need reliable and affordable energy.
Do you think that we should predominantly be focusing on gas as opposed to, example, coal? Like we should wean ourselves off coal?
It's easy to say we wean ourselves off coal. In Africa, we are saying we are for solar as well. But what we can't do is close all the coal mines. We need solar, but we also need base load, significant amount of base load, which comes with gas, coal, hydrocarbons, hydro, and all of that. We can't afford at this stage to discard any of the solutions.
Coal remains South Africa's main source of energy, and as the world turns its back on coal-fired power plants and coal mining, South Africa is also committed to transitioning away from this dirty sector. I returned to my hometown of eMalahleni in the coal belt of South Africa to find out how the transition will impact communities. In eMalahleni, which means place of coal in the local language, you will find the black stuff everywhere.
It's quite a big mine, 6.3 million tons. We employ about 1,200 employees. On average, it goes to Duva power station every year.
Coal mining here is big business. It supplies the plants which power South Africa's electricity. It provides employment to the local community. It's so important that many feel it's not going away anytime soon.
We're working towards a 2034 with Duva to supply them until, well, as long as the power station lasts. We're hoping that they can go beyond 2034.
This mine is owned by Seriti, one of South Africa's largest coal producers. It says they employ nearly 20,000 workers across several mines, providing coal to 5 power stations. Despite the demand for coal, Seriti is very aware of the need for an energy transition.
Everybody understands climate change. Everybody understands decarbonization. We fully understand that. Nobody amongst us who run coal mines or who operate in the mining industry are climate denialists. We understand that.
You know better than anyone how dirty this is, right?
It is a
Because
dirty industry.
It's a dirty
we fully
industry.
understand.
Yeah.
But we operate in a country that is a developing economy, that is a growing economy. We're not a developed economy like the United States or some of the countries in Europe. And we know that we need to develop our own agenda. As South Africa, the agenda that says how do we transition to renewables, as in solar, wind, how do we get into hydro, how do we ensure that we go into nuclear if we go into nuclear, to go into cleaner energies. But that transition must be responsible.
This is the debate at the heart of the energy transition in South Africa. How to move away from coal and how to protect the livelihoods of the more than 92,000 workers, according to the South African Minerals Council, who work directly in the coal mining industry.
We need to be realistic and say if we were to go into building solar farms, wind farms, hydro and the like, new forms of energy, it's not going to be one for one, the jobs. We need to be realistic that as we transition, that is why we need to reskill our employees to new forms of type of employment and new skills that will give them a livelihood into the future.
Eskom is South Africa's largest electricity provider. It runs 15 coal power stations that provide most of the country's electricity.
What we have on the table is what we call our 2035 strategy, where we're looking at shutting down 22 gigawatts of coal by 2035. So that's about 47% of our capacity. And beyond that, we will still have 6 plants running. We will still have Medupi and Kusile operating beyond 2050. Because they're being built now, their lifespan is up till 2069 and 2070 respectively. So those plants will still be on our grid. So nobody's saying South Africa shut down coal overnight.
Eskom is embracing renewables, stating that it is committed to replacing almost half of all of its coal-fired power capacity with renewable power by 2035.
So it is 88% coal right now, and I think that ratio is going to change quite significantly. Renewables are the cheapest and the quickest thing you can do right now.
Eskom says that last month it completed the decommission of Komati, one of its oldest coal-fired plants. The company says that it will be replaced by a renewables plant and that a just energy transition for its workers is a top priority.
We're training all our staff at Komati on renewables. We're starting up a training facility at Komati Power Station in partnership with the Cape Peninsula University of Technology, and we're actually building a training facility at Komati to train renewables artisans to be able to work on renewables plants.
So when you said there's leave no one behind, you meant it. No one has been left behind at Komati.
At Komati, no. So no jobs at
lost.
Komati. So our guys will be retrained, and obviously those that want to stay on to operate and maintain the renewables plants that we will be building will be more than welcome to do so. But on the coal value chain, my question is, what are the coal mining companies doing? That's not Eskom's responsibility.
When we come back, we'll be catching up with energy and chemical giant Sasol about its transition away from coal. It's Africa Energy Week in Cape Town, and the continent's energy leaders are in town to discuss the big issues facing the sector. Among them is Sasol, a major provider of energy and chemicals. It mines coal, produces gas, makes fuels including petrol and jet fuel. It has manufacturing plants in South Africa and Mozambique and exports its products across the continent. As a leading energy provider, I caught up with its Executive Vice President, Priscilla Mabelane, to discuss its energy transition plans.
One of the biggest greenhouse gas emitters on the continent, Sasol. This is a dilemma, I would imagine.
I would say it's a dual challenge, but it's equally a dual opportunity. The climate change imperatives are real. South Africa, similarly to the fact that we're blessed with coal, we are also blessed with other mineral resources. Firstly, we've set ourselves a carbon neutrality by 2050, that's clear. So we are changing our mix of energy and replacing coal with renewables. At the same time, we are also ensuring that we are efficient in the way we consume energy going forward. And then secondly, we are looking at gas. So we're bringing in more and more natural gas to ensure that, as you know, gas emits lower than coal, and that will be part of our 30% reduction. As we do that, we believe that it's imperative for us to take advantage of the opportunities we see at global scale before 2030.
Do you foresee a situation where we turn our backs on coal?
Let's be realistic. At some point into the future, 2050, 2060, dependency on coal is going to disappear. The question is, how do we transition from that? And it's not only coal, it's fossil fuel. At some stage, it will reduce significantly. And this is where I keep on saying we have an existing and exciting plan to play with. At the same time, we need the other technologies, such as hydrogen, to be competitive to fossil so that we can actually scale up our existing operations.
I love this green hydrogen story, and I think there's so much R&D happening. We're seeing some of projects coming up in South Africa as well. How quickly do you think that technology is going to evolve so that it can be scaled?
We look at different data, and we also look at what the Hydrogen Council recently have publicized, where they're basically anticipating that when you look at the global energy mix, green hydrogen will constitute about 20% of that, whether it's on heavy-duty mobility, mining, chemicals, plants like ours. So that will evolve. We still need to understand now, with the mega projects that have been announced, the incentives that countries such as the US as well as Germany have provided, whether the acceleration will be faster than 2035.
Can you repurpose?
To 2050 we will. I mean, we will probably not produce petrol, for example. A lot of cars could go to electrification, but we'll be able to produce chemicals, we'll be able to produce sustainable aviation fuels, we'll leverage on existing infrastructure and bringing in renewables and other sources of carbon.
When we come back, how Africa can scale up to greener and cleaner sources of energy. Welcome back to Connecting Africa, and this month we come to you from Cape Town as leaders come together to discuss ways to alleviate energy poverty on the continent. There's a big conversation happening around diversifying Africa's energy mix. As oil and gas prices soar, one alternative is renewable energy and a big focus on solar. When it comes to Africa using the sun to produce energy, it has massive potential. The continent has 60% of the globe's solar radiation, but only 1% of the world's installed solar capacity, according to the International Energy Agency. And one company leading the transition to solar is New Southern Energy. I caught up with its CEO, David Masurek.
David, nice to see you. You know, the big conversation here is, can South Africa move away from coal and focus on renewable energy? What is your sense in terms of how strong a mix renewables can actually offer to the overall portfolio in SA?
It's well known now that solar and renewables is very much here to stay. It's become an integral technology in the energy transitions. But the problem is large. So it's not like we can switch off from coal or traditional energy forms overnight. You need baseload power also going forward. So it's really, yes, it's going to be part of the solution, and it'll play a bigger and bigger part of the solution going forward.
New Southern Energy says it is providing solar energy solutions to a range of businesses and was one of the first to build floating panels in South Africa. It also operates in Namibia, Botswana, Tanzania, and Kenya.
Our clients range through various sectors: agriculture, manufacturing, hospitality, retail and property. We very much focus on the commercial and industrial space, so that's rooftop solar and behind the meter solutions, which is obviously a key component. It plays a big part in demand reduction and provides, in South African context, clients with energy security and cost reduction, obviously with the way that things are going here. So our projects are ranging from a few hundred kilowatts up to a few megawatts. I think the biggest problems that we're trying to solve for our clients is energy security and cost reduction.
How much demand have you seen, people calling you saying, listen, we want to get off grid, we want to be independent of the power utility?
It's a hot topic in South Africa at the moment, so everyone wants to go off grid, and everyone, I think there's an appetite from all sectors. So yeah, we've seen a big demand for it, and it's just getting bigger.
Do you foresee that companies are going to be plugged into the power utility for a certain amount of time during the day, and that most companies are going to choose to become a lot more off-grid, and then that's going to be the future of how South Africans are going to be consuming electricity?
Hopefully that main supply from the grid side, from the utility side, is more balanced. So more renewables, and there's a more dynamic market in terms of private players providing power to the grid, basically.
Yeah.
And then I think on-site, I think definitely people are going to be more and more geared towards energy security. So they're going to have systems on site that they know that they will have power in the event of load shedding, in the event of any grid outage, etc., from a security and cost saving point of view. Because for an end user, there's also a big cost benefit. So people are incentivized naturally to go off grid.
When we come back, we meet the women driving Africa's energy sector. Welcome back to Connecting Africa. Ending energy poverty on the continent is top priority, and a group of leaders actively discussing this are women in the industry. They've come together on the sidelines of Africa Energy Week. Their goal? How to boost the number of women working in the energy sector. By international standards, it's still a very male-dominated industry. Among 29 countries surveyed by the International Energy Agency in 2018, there were 76% less women than men working in the energy sector, compared with an 8% gap between women and men in the global workforce.
I think within the energy industry itself, we bring a perspective that perhaps would be missing otherwise if we were not participating. And then I think also we are, as women, we're very concerned about our children and our children's children. And so as we build our careers and we work in the industry, we also see it as building for the future.
Women bring a different flavor, a different perspective, and the requirement of energy also is gender-based. If you look at if you look at women and men and children for that matter, because the requirements of, especially in the African space, right, the involvement of women actually brings the more transformation of what energy should be or should mean to women overall.
What do you think women bring to the table?
One of the key things is women don't start initially with a profit motive. Profit is important, but it's understanding in the long term, what is it we want for our countries, what do we want for our communities, how do we want to build an energy infrastructure that will respond to the needs, not just of what the industrialization need is for Africa, but also in terms of the long-term future of sustainable energy generation, energy transmission, and making sure that our communities do get the access that they need.
Several initiatives are underway to increase women's participation in the energy sector. The African Energy Chamber says it's working to increase the number of women working in the hydrogen sector. While the World Bank has launched the Energy to Equal and Women in Renewables Energy in Africa initiatives to address the gender gap, some firms are doing a lot more than others. Among them is energy giant BP, and I sat down with its Africa CEO, Taelo Mojepalo.
I want to talk about women in this industry. You've been a big proponent of creating more diversity at boardrooms.
We went through a change. We were an international oil company, and now we're moving towards what we call an integrated energy company. Post the development of our new strategy, we also came up with new aims that really guide us in our purpose in terms of what we do as an organization. And I must say today, of the executive leadership team of BP Global, 6 out of 11 of our leadership team are women. It's never been done before. That is new for us. These are very competent women. We've got brilliant engineers who just have never really had the opportunity, and they're there now, actually leading the organization.
We're gathered for Energy Week, and I think, listening to the opening statements, everyone is talking about the energy deficit on the continent, that 600 million Africans don't have access to stable and reliable, safe electricity. How are you viewing this dilemma?
It's quite clear that Africa has an energy deficit. In fact, you probably only have about 12% of Africa's population that have access to electricity, which is actually quite a tragedy. Now, if you look at the energy sources that we have, we've got an abundance of various energy sources. Currently, our largest energy source at the moment is coal. And as we know, coal, from a carbon emissions perspective, is quite high. We also have access to an abundance of solar, an abundance of wind energy, as well as nuclear. And now we do see the emergence of LNG gas, which we do see as a transition gas. And Africa has all of these. So the way we look at it is to make sure that we've got the right mix to serve the geographies that we participate in.
I want to talk about LNG. How quickly can we transition away from things that we've become very accustomed to, i.e. coal?
LNG is imminent. It is here. And there is a lot of work and there are a lot of projects that are on the go on LNG. And particularly if you look at Africa, in Mauritania and Senegal, for example, BP, we have got projects that we have. There is some work as well on the Horn of Africa along in Egypt as well. There is some work around gas. And if you look at the southern basin as well, there are many companies that are actually exploring, making sure that they put in the right resources to explore for LNG, because it's an important transition gas. And more especially if you look at on the north of Mozambique as well, there is a lot of work that very soon and quite imminent offtake will be taking place shortly.
How long is it going to take us for us to become truly energy independent, right? Whether it's solar, wind, whether it's gas, whether it's refining oil on the continent.
When you talk about energy, there are three things in my mind that you've got to make sure are in place. Adequate competition, efficiency of your value chain, as well as diversity. Those three are actually very important. And if you think about the efficiency aspect, for as long as you're not efficient, you can have 20 refineries in Africa. If they're not efficient, you will actually do your people a disservice, because you won't be able to give them cheap energy. So you have to be extremely efficient. And what we are finding now is, there are other regions that are able to compete more effectively than some of the refineries that operate in Africa. And as a result, it becomes actually cheaper. But that is not the ideal end state. So it's important that we actually understand those three factors at play.
Do you believe that Africa can help solve some of the world's global energy issues and deficits just by de facto our production capacity, which we are yet to fulfill, but we have this potential?
Absolutely. If you look at the current crisis now that's playing out in Europe, it presents a perfect opportunity for Africa to be a major player in this gas, in the gas industry, and not only in the gas, but also in the oil industry. But as you know, we've been speaking about gas as a transition energy source, and we believe that the African continent is well placed to participate, and we need to just create enabling environments for corporates to be able to participate.
Well, that's it for this edition of Connecting Africa. If you want to know more about the stories on our program, you can check out our website. From me, Eleni Jokos, here in Cape Town. Until next time, let's keep on connecting.